Hello and welcome to the basementwaterproofingnearme.com podcast. If you are looking for basement waterproofing in Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Houston, Texas, Amarillo, Texas, all of Texas, or most of Oklahoma, you got to listen to today's podcast. This guy literally wrote the book on basements and basement waterproofing. His name is Willie King Jr. with the Basement Kings. So without further ado, let's listen to the call.
By the way, did you see my book online?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you.
I got a pretty good response.
So do you have that on Amazon or is it just on your website?
Oh no, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It's sold in about 50 different bookstores around the world. I'm even sold some copies in Israel.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
I know, that's what I said.
So
I did it just for Texas.
Yeah, awesome. So we're recording now, so I'm just going to ask you a few questions. So like, how did you get started in basement waterproofing? What's your history? I read a little bit about you, on your website and stuff, but
yeah. I'm a third generation pool builder. My father and my uncle, which my father has 22 kids in his family. So my father's brother was almost as old as most people's father, and he started in the swimming pool business, and then he trained my father, and my father was training me. So when I remember going out to my the job with my dad when I was 9, and when I was 9, that was the summer in which I started working with my father all the time. Every time he went to work and I wasn't in school, I was with my father out on the job.
Yeah, awesome.
And my father was a specialty builder. So my father didn't just do one job. What he did is my father would go to a company site and then train, pick up laborers and guys that was working for the company, and train everybody a job. Either be a guy who's shooting the concrete as a nozzleman, the guy who's going to be finishing, the guy who's going to be doing the step, the guy who's throwing out what we call the rebind, all the extra concrete, the spillage. Everybody's job, my father trained every individual guy what his job was going to be. And then they would start building swim pools all summer long. And then at the end of the summer or the next year, somebody else would offer my father more money, and my father would leave, and we would move. So, for a while, I thought I was part of a military family as often as we moved.
Yeah.
We started off in California and ended up in Burlington, Massachusetts, and Boston, and then Nashville, New Hampshire, and then Connecticut. And then we started traveling back to California, and my father got hired here in Texas. And after we stayed here in Texas, the companies here, they took turns paying my father to stay here until he retired. So while we were putting in swimming pools, there was basements here in Texas that were leaking, and nobody knew how to fix them. And since my father was already doing some minor repairs to swimming pools, they started calling my father, and he started going out repairing a lot of those swimming pools that were leaking. And of course, he drug his son along, which is me.
Yeah. So how
and
many years
after
ago
a number of years, oh man, about 30, a little over 30 years ago. I remember out on the job, and my father was patching a couple of swimming pools.
Wow.
And when I graduated from college in '92, the second time, I graduated, and I was supposed to take over the family business. And I wanted to build my first home, and I couldn't find any builder that would build the basement. And they were all trying to convince me of all the reasons that we couldn't put in the basement. And I knew it was all false because we've been putting in swimming pools for 40 years in Texas.
Yeah.
So they would say the soil was too hard. Well, if the soil was too hard, we couldn't put in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
They would tell us the soil was so bad that it was going to crack. Well, none of our swimming pools were cracking. And then I knew it was all garbage. But when I had one guy out explaining to me that the reason that they don't do basements in Texas was because of the tectonic plates, I knew that I had found a niche because none of these guys had a clue what they were talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I did was I drew up my first basement, and I built my first designed it, engineered it, and then built me a basement in far north Dallas. And when I finished the basement, all these builders showed up. They started giving me a business card. And the next day, I knew that rather than anything else, I was not going to be doing swim pools. I was going to be doing basements.
Yeah.
And from then on, I've been designing, engineering, and waterproofing. I've always researched what was the best method to waterproof, and I've used every method out there to waterproof a basement. And now we've devised our own method combined with another method, and now we can guarantee that when we waterproof a wall, that it's not going to leak. And when we seal that wall, we can guarantee that it will be dry on the inside of that basement for the life of the basement. And we're the only one in Texas that can do it.
Do you have that warranty pass on to the next homeowner? Is it like a lifetime? We call it a lifetime transferable warranty. Awesome. So now, do you find yourself doing more basement repairs and waterproofing, or do you find yourself building more basements? And are these? I'm assuming it's mostly for newer homes, or do you get older homes as well? And I know here.
Well,
go ahead.
We have done everything under the sun. We have added a basement to an existing house. We've enlarged the basement on an existing house, and we have added a basement to a 120-year-old house that had nothing on it structural-wise. We added a full-size basement that was larger than the general footprint of the house to that location. So I guess we could say we've added a larger basement to the interior footprint of the house. We do it two ways. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what do you find yourself doing the most of, basement waterproofing or constructing basements?
Well, when we first started, we were constructing more basements than anything else. And now that a lot of people know who we are and what we do, now we're waterproofing and repairing basements more than anything else. I'd say now basement waterproofing and repairing basements now is about 75% of our business.
Oh, wow. And there aren't a ton of basements in Texas. And your service area is not just Texas, though, right? You go into all of Oklahoma or just part of Oklahoma, or?
Well, we service most of Oklahoma, but what we find now is that there is more basements than you can imagine in Texas. See, what most people don't realize is the majority of the basements that were built in Texas were built past 20 years ago. When you go 25, 30 years ago, an average basement an average home that was built outside of town, out on the farming areas and a lot of other communities, they built the basement on top of that house. Below that house. So there's communities right now. I'm in Houston driving, and I'm here in a community where there was 30 basements. In this just one small community. There's more basements than you can imagine in the state of Texas. And since we serve all of Texas, we see them built every way that you can possibly imagine. We call it the Wild West, the way the average basement was built in Texas. But there's a lot of basements in Texas.
So do you come across mostly Cinderblock basements, or are they poured, the ones that you're waterproofing?
Well, it depends on what part of Texas you're in. If it's far north Dallas, they're primarily poured walls. When you go further south, they're all primarily Cinderblock. Okay.
Well, cool. And
Cinderblock leaks faster and more than any other type of basement that you're going to find. And our method we repair a Cinderblock wall just as easy as we do a poured wall.
So, would you can you like tell us about your method, or is it like your secret sauce that and you can't share?
Well, no. The way we do it is proprietary, but our method is pretty simple. The first thing we do is, let's say somebody calls us, or they have a leaking basement. We can repair that basement no matter how bad it is. Doesn't matter how the humidity is, the wall caving in, it doesn't really matter. If the wall's caving in, we'll redo the wall that's caving in and tie it to the existing wall. Then, if there's any cracks or holes in that basement, we repair the walls, and then we waterproof them. What we find is 75% of the walls that we see in Texas, they've already made the mistake, like going out and buying the paint waterproofing type of method.
Yep.
And they paint them and they're white, and they think it's waterproof. But what they fail to do is read the container. The container says that it is a sealer, or it tells them it's a damp proofer. And in the subnotes, it'll say, does not work under hydrostatic pressure, which just told you that it doesn't leak. I mean, it doesn't repair leaks.
Yep.
Because if it's a basement, any type of leak you have is hydrostatic pressure. So, which means that when you put this material on the wall, if it's leaking, it's not going to stop it from leaking. All you've done is made it expensive to fix.
Now, does that
go ahead, please.
Does that paint cause the like for my basement, Cinderblock? So does that paint cause it to crumble? Because it's now the water's having issues. I mean, it still comes out, but it's not coming out like it's not being able to breathe through the block.
No, what causes that block to crumble a lot of times is the average person doesn't have a dehumidifier.
Yeah.
So when that moisture gets into that block, over time, that water erodes and just simply it just gives way, because a large number of the older styles basements that were built, the cinder block were hollow.
Yep.
Or they fill them up with sand or dirt. So when you end up with a hole in it, that it begins washing out all of the structure, and then over time it just begins to just crumble up.
And how do you fix something like that? And do poured basements have the same issue, or they begin to
believe it or not, a lot of poured basements have the same issue, because a lot of those poured basements, they didn't pour them to a strong mixture, which is what we call the PSI. They poured the floor. They poured the wall to the same concrete PSI as they had for the floor, which means that wall is not really all that strong. So over time, it just tends to crumble and erode because the water is able to slide through it. Most people think that concrete is a really strong structure, and the thicker they pour the wall, the better chance they have of the wall never leaking. And it doesn't really matter how thick they pour that wall. That wall is going to suck water no matter what it does. It's just depending at what rate is it going to suck water based on the PSI.
Yeah.
Because if most people don't understand it, just walk outside and get a cup of water and pour it on your concrete and see how long it takes for that concrete to suck up the water.
Yeah.
That's your basement.
Yeah. Well, right next to my house, I had a sidewalk. I just took it out. It wasn't sidewalk, but I think they put it there to help keep the water away from the house, but I think it was actually causing damage, and water would just puddle up on top of it, and eventually I think would just either soak into that cement or go back into my basement, and then I had big holes in the block that were missing. You know, like it ate away at the basement. You've probably seen some of that.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Out of all the conversations I've had with people who think they know what they're talking about, you have just made one of the best comments that I've ever had with somebody, including an engineer. Because a lot of these people, they're under the impression that if they pour concrete around the structure, that it's going to keep the water away. What they've just done is they've just guaranteed that the water that's around the structure is going to flow towards the basement and stay there.
Even if the cement's graded away from it, would that?
Yeah. Well, the problem with grading it away from it is over time, depending on how they graded it, they don't need concrete to do it.
Yeah.
But so when they pour that concrete may fall pretty well, but unless they make that angle where it falls, it should fall 6 inches for the first 10 feet. And usually that means it's got a pretty good dip. And usually when they pour that concrete around it, they try to make it look like it's kind of flat, but with a little bit of slant on it.
Yeah.
And the problem is depending on the structure, everybody's got trees and bushes, and when that stuff falls down and those leaves fall down, it fills in those little areas.
Yep.
And then when it floods, that water immediately raises up, and you have poured that structure where immediately it's poured around the structure and goes up the wall. They would have been better off not pouring any concrete around it and putting in a proper drain.
Yep. So
but they don't do it.
So
go ahead.
So what do you do? Are you, because there's seems like a battle between what I've been reading online with exterior waterproofing and interior, and they actually say it's water management when it's interior rather than waterproofing. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is those arguments on both sides are correct, believe it or not. When they say, hey, if you channel the water on the inside, you're not waterproofing, you're channeling water. You're giving up on stopping the water from coming, and what you're doing is you're bringing it in and you're controlling it. That's not waterproofing. They're correct. And waterproofers who waterproof on the outside, tell them that when you waterproof on the outside and you put the pump on the outside, you're not necessarily catching all the water. What you've done is you put in what we consider a deep well on the assumption that the water is going to flow into the well and keep the basement from flooding.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't work over time as well. And they're right. So I'm more of a being a martial artist, I'm more of a Bruce Lee kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
All martial arts is good. There is no one art better than the other art. It's all based on the quality of the martial artist. Well, in this situation, the quality of the basement waterproofer. Mm-hmm. Our method is we do both. If we go out to a job and we see a basement that's leaking and the walls are really bad, the first thing we do is we redo the areas that are crumbling. Then we repair all the cracks, all the holes, all the seams, all the gaps. And then we waterproof the entire area. Now we know that water is never going to come in through our walls. Mm-hmm. Because what we do is the type of waterproofing we use, we call it self-healing concrete. It penetrates the entire wall. And our waterproofing, it doesn't matter if we apply it on the outside or the inside. If we apply it on the outside, over time, it penetrates the entire wall. It doesn't matter if it's concrete block or if it's a poured wall. So what we do is we apply it based on whatever is feasible. If we're looking at a basement that is totally finished out and it's totally going to cost them $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to gut the basement in order for us to properly fix all the walls and waterproof them, then we do it from the outside of the basement.
Yep, that makes sense.
If the basement is open and they haven't finished it out because, A, it's always been leaking, so they've never got a chance to finish it out, In that case, what we do is we repair it from the inside. We waterproof the interior walls, which makes the walls waterproof within 5 days. We apply the waterproofing on in 2 different type of coats, and we water them, literally water the walls for the next 2 days, and after that, the walls will not accept water. It's crystalline structure after that. So our walls don't leak, and they're warranted to not leak for at least 20 years. After that's done and our walls are dry, then we put up a moisture barrier material all around the inside with drain. And now we can guarantee that the basement walls no longer are going to take it. And then if they ever crack for whatever reason, it would slide into our drains automatically, and we can guarantee that moisture doesn't enter the walls and water will never hit the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So we do both of those methods. When we warranty the basement to never leak again, we do both of them.
So then with Cinderblock basements, do you drill out the cores of each block if it's the hollow kind? Are you doing that so that it releases like if water gets in there, it comes out? And if you do or if you don't, one thing that I'm curious about, because I heard that people do that, it's like, seems like that would weaken your foundation when you have all these holes at the bottom.
Well, really, there's small holes because water is going to always find a way.
Yeah.
So number one, you're not drilling a very large hole through.
Yeah.
But I've seen people do a lot of different methods, and we used to do those kind of methods. What we do is we drill a hole as we do a couple of what we call pilot test holes, and if they're full of water, it's not a problem. But what we're doing is we're drilling to make sure that we don't have an issue as far as the block crumbling. If you drill a hole through it and you get a lot of mud and a lot of material come through, then we know that block is breaking down.
Okay.
So,
and what do you do in a situation?
Then what we'll do is a lot of times we'll build a thin wall on the outside of that wall because we think that wall may be compromised.
So that means you're digging. You have to excavate outside.
No, we're doing it. We're adding that thin wall on the inside.
Oh, okay.
And we only do that maybe 2% of the time. It's a rare case though.
Oh, okay.
Because most of the time what we find is the concrete block is still structurally sound, because you can actually see the concrete block, which is disintegrating on average, is because you can see it literally sliding off of the footing, or you can actually see it that the walls are being pushed away from each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I saw in one of your Facebook videos that you guys were sandblasting the walls. Is that to get the paint off so you can put your solution on the wall? Is that pretty much what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, it's not sandblasting. Sandblasting is not environmentally friendly.
Okay.
We blast with other materials. That we don't tell exactly what we use, because we are able to shoot those walls in a way that it literally will strip the block back to its original state before anything was on it.
I know what I was saying. So are you concerned with, when you do that, is there any concern with like mold spores or any of that, like being released in the atmosphere of the home, or is it not an issue, or do you take care of that beforehand?
No, if we noticed that there was mold, we would have either had them do a mold remediation before we started, or we have a couple of chemicals that we use that we shoot on top of mold areas, and it literally eats the mold.
Yeah, I've seen some videos on YouTube or on Facebook that they're selling some stuff, so I'm curious if it's kind of the same.
Same stuff. All I know is it eats the mold, and we spray it on one day, and the next day we go in there, all the mold is gone that we normally see, and we're able to go to work.
Cool. So I have some other questions that that I wrote down. But so how do you prevent like your basement from smelling musty? What's the that's just water that causes it?
Yes, that's moisture. That's moisture inside the basement. And what we do is we put our material on the wall that I was telling you that kills the humidity. And 1 second. Here we go. There we go. We put a material on the wall, which is a thermal barrier material on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it blocks moisture.
Mm-hmm.
And once we put the material on the wall, it blocks the moisture. And then we put another material over the floor, and it blocks all the moisture coming in through the foundation. And literally the next day, we can walk into that basement, and we can notice that the humidity level dropped from like 60, 65 down to, right around maybe 58, 59 without a dehumidifier. And then our levels drop all the way down to the 40s.
Where's it supposed to be? Is it in the 50 range?
Yes. Anywhere between 45 and 50 is a good, healthy range for the 10.
So basically you encapsulate the whole basement so that it's the air inside your basement is not connected to the walls or the flooring and all that. That's kind of your...
Exactly. Yeah. And we use a clean air system along with it. And it literally cleans the air while it's inside. So the basement tends to smell cleaner than the rest of the house.
So I saw that you have products for sale on your website, and one of them was I forget what it was called, with the exchanger or something like that. And so it can blow air out, in, or do both at the same time. Is that kind of system that you put in?
Well, what we've gone to now, that's our whole website. What we've gone now to is portable. There's a much smaller unit now that literally sits outside the basement wall,
mm-hmm.
and it literally sucks the air in and transforms and cleans the air. It's we've gone standard to which is an easy breeze system.
Oh, okay.
And that's... Go ahead.
So the airflow that's coming in, because one thing that I've read was that you don't want the temperature of your basement. If the air on the outside is hotter than what it is inside, or vice versa, I don't remember which one it was, you don't want that.
Right.
The temperature needs to be basically the same or lower. What's correct my information?
But this is the thing. Most of the time, once you block off the humidity, it's easier to control the air in the basement just for normal breathing. Now,
mm-hmm.
if you actually had, let's say you had let's say you were using it for wine. Well, that's different. Then what you would use is you would actually have a system that's going to actually keep the temperature of the cellar exactly what you want. It'll regulate the temperature. So, but if you have a regular standard basement that's a decent size, you usually don't have to worry about that. You just need a dehumidifier and a clean air system, and that usually handles everything you need.
Okay. So, how about efflorescence? Is there a way to get rid of that if you see it on your walls, or is that pretty much you're going to have it?
There's a lot of chemicals that are sold out there that you can treat the effervescence for, because all it is the salt content coming out of the structure, coming out of your block or coming out of your wall.
Yeah.
It's leaching the salt coming out of it. And you can treat it. But the main thing is if you have a dehumidifier, you'll notice that most of the time you tend not to have the same problems as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's primarily because they don't have anything in their basement to help bring down the humidity level. So moisture's coming in, and there's no way for it to get out.
So let's say if somebody has efflorescence, a musty-smelling basement with no signs of water, would you recommend that their basement be waterproofed, or is it like or are there other methods that you do?
I would encapsulate the basement. If you encapsulate the basement, you serve both methods at one time. Number one, you stop the water from coming in, and you reduce the moisture level.
Mm-hmm.
But if they see water, then we're talking waterproof.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it becomes a matter of budget. You have some people that will tell you that the moisture level isn't a major issue for them. Their issue is they see water all in their basement.
Yep.
Well, in that case, you can waterproof the wall and stop all the water from coming in.
Yeah.
And you can always encapsulate it later on. But the first thing you have to do is you have to stop the water from coming in. Yep. So it won't damage your structure and damage everything that you have inside.
So then, if somebody's looking for a basement waterproofer, what should they be looking for? How do they know that they're hiring the right company?
What they should do is, the first thing I suggest is look at their rating. Look and see if they have any bad reviews. Because when somebody spends $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $10,000, $15,000 on their basement, if they get burned, they're going to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how big. I had a customer the other day. She was explaining to me that she had a very big company come in, and they gave her a very, very, very good price, and it was much better than my price. And she asked me, would I give her a much better price? And I told her no. And she said, but I got this big, big company. And I said, and I had my phone. I said, why don't you tell me their name? She told me their name, and I looked them up, and we did a review. We did a search for fraud, and then I did another search on bad reviews. And, we found 20 different reviews that was bad on the company. And I said, I thought you told me they were a very big company. She said, oh, yeah, they're really big. I said, the bigger the company are, the more they can absorb bad language against us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bad
you
publicity.
You pick a company that has very good reviews, that is that's customer oriented only, like we are. We are. We're serious about our reviews. We're anal about our reviews, as we say. It's because if you keep your customer happy, everybody that they talk to is your future referral. And since up to last year, I think within the last 2 years, we didn't even advertise anywhere at any time. We stayed busy just by word of mouth. We're advertising now is because we have so many people working, because we serve all of Texas now. So now we're actually advertising to keep everybody busy all the time. But before then, we never even advertised, and we stay busy. Awesome. We work 7 days a week.
You're talking about reviews, and I had a basement waterproofing company come to my house, and I was looking up their reviews. And it's something I guess I'd recommend if people are looking up reviews is don't just look at the reviews that they placed on their own site, but go to like your Yelps and the different places and read the reviews. But one thing I found was this company hired people from like India and other places to write reviews for them, because I was able to click on their profile and see this person that gave the review lives in the UK or something. It's like there's no this person didn't get their house waterproofed by these people.
That's the thing about doing a general search. When you do a general search and you read the reviews on their site, and then you read the reviews in other places, you get a sense of what they're saying they're doing. And what I've had some of my customers say is they asked me for a couple dozen of references. So we post our videos. We post video reviews of the actual customer talking about us coming out and what we did. We're constantly adding to them every month. We have general reviews that we have where somebody typed up an email and sent it in, and we let them choose between the reviews. And a couple of them they ask us for. They choose it. They say, well, if we saw a couple of the reviews online, could you give us the phone number to this person? And we'll give them the phone number. Let them actually talk to them.
Yeah, awesome.
If they got the money to call India.
Yeah.
And and we tie a lot of our. That's why lately what we're doing now is we've made a point to create a new site, and we're going to be posting new pictures every month of new jobs. So therefore, because every job isn't the same. Some people, they don't even want their whole basement done. They may only want a French drain. So if they get a chance to see those pictures and see how it's done, it makes them feel much more comfortable with hiring us.
Mm-hmm.
So what I say is you do a well-rounded search. You search online reviews. You search from Angie's List. You search from Thumbtack, maybe Home Advisors. See, all those places, they post reviews, but guess what? Those reviews have to actually come from customers.
Mm-hmm.
And they follow up those reviews by calling those customers.
Yep.
So those become more real than just a general review that you said, look, this is what somebody said about me. And then you have those reviews where you actually see a customer and he's staying there saying, we hired the Basement Kings, they came out, and this is what they did for us.
So for basements that you've done, what's the longest, or I guess, how many years has it been since like your first basement, whatever, second, third, and you say that it's still doing the job, it's still doing what it's, how long, I guess, what's the lifespan of what you've seen so far?
In the last 10 years, we've gone back to only 2 jobs that actually have to do a modification. So when we say it's fixed, we know it's fixed.
Yeah.
And each time what we found was it wasn't anything of our materials. It's just there's a lot of fracking going on in Texas now.
Yep.
So you put up a basement wall that is built to never move, and now the ground is shaking.
Yeah.
So what you've got is you've got cracks in this wall that was impervious to leaks. And what we used to do is we used to use membranes on the side of those basements, and we've had to go back and repair some of those membranes because the membranes were all warranted for 10. Our warranty was 10 to 12 years. So some of those membranes, we've actually went out now and we've replaced those membranes with waterproofing that we use now, self-healing concrete.
Mm-hmm.
We no longer use liners of any kind. We used to use products that was sprayed on that created a rubber on the wall. Mm-hmm. And we've gone back and repaired one of those. That's why we've had 2. One was a sprayed-on liner, and the other one was a liner that was on the wall. Placed on with glue. But every one of the basements that we did, other than those 2, they've lived up to the warranty.
Awesome. So if somebody were to ask why they should hire you as a contractor, what would you tell them?
I tell them that for our level of service, we take it personal if a job that we have is not effective. And I'll give you a good example. We did a job one time in Colorado. We do outside of state. People fly us in now. And we totally repaired the floor. And the young lady couldn't sell the house. It was she had major cracks in her floor. I mean, we told her that we could fix it without having to totally tear up her foundation, and everybody else told her she had to tear up her foundation. Mm-hmm. And we took pride in being able to totally fix all the open holes and seal them all up to make sure water didn't come through. After we did that, the basement was sealed, and she was selling the house. She called us back and let us know that we guaranteed that after we fixed the floor, that she would not have to fix the foundation, and she'd be able to sell the house. And after she did, she put the house up for sale. The comments was, as they saw all the repairs in the floor, even though we warranted that there was never going to leak, it scared them. So she said, see, it didn't solve my purpose on the end. What we did was we went back and we retiled the floor for free. Because we knew that it wasn't going to leak.
Yeah.
But If it doesn't look like it, then, you can't. And since we told her that she was not going to have an issue selling that house, we took it personal. So we spent maybe, I think, right around $3,000 to $4,000 for tile. And we went and we retiled that whole basement. I think those pictures are online of how big that basement was.
So do you do basement remodels as well, or is it, or do you
No, we don't do remodel.
Okay.
We don't do remodel of any kind. Everything is just waterproofing and sticking with what we promised that it was going to do.
That concludes our interview with Willie King Jr. of the Basement Kings. So if you are a homeowner in Texas or Oklahoma and you are looking for basement waterproofing, you can go ahead and, if you're on YouTube, you can click the link in the description to get a consultation with Willie. If you're on our website, there's a form either to your left or below that you can fill out, and he will get a hold of you as well. Otherwise, if you're in other parts of the United States and you're looking for a basement waterproofing company, you can go ahead and just visit our website, basementwaterproofingnearme.com, and we can help you find a basement waterproofing contractor near you. All right, so I hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, thank you for watching. If you're on our podcast, thank you for listening, and have a great day. We'll see you in the next one.